The rain had been falling since before dawn, a steady, gray curtain that blurred the city into muted shapes and wet reflections. Emily Carter adjusted her scrubs beneath her jacket as she locked the door to her small apartment. Another 12-hour shift awaited her at the county hospital, and her feet already ached at the thought of it. Nursing wasn't the job she'd imagined as a child. It was harder, messier, and lonelier, but it was honest work, and she clung to that on days when exhaustion threatened to swallow her whole. The bus stop was 3 blocks away, past a row of shuttered shops and a narrow park most people avoided after dark. Emily crossed it every morning anyway. She'd learned that fear only grew when fed. Besides, she had company most days. Rex was already there, sitting patiently beside the bench, his tan and black coat damp but immaculate, ears alert, tail still. He looked up when he saw her, amber eyes bright with recognition. "Morning, handsome," Emily said softly, crouching to scratch behind his ears. Rex leaned into her touch, calm and steady, the way only well-trained dogs ever were. His vest marked him clearly as a retired K9, and the worn leather handle along his back showed years of service. Sitting on the other end of the bench was his owner, Thomas Hale, a grizzled man in his late 60s with a stiff posture and eyes that never quite stopped scanning their surroundings. He wore an old army jacket with faded patches, sleeves frayed at the cuffs. "Morning, Nurse Carter," Thomas said, his voice rough but warm. "You're up early again." "Hospital doesn't believe in sleep," Emily replied with a tired smile. They'd met months ago when Emily first noticed Rex limping slightly and insisted on checking his paw. Thomas had been reluctant at first, pride stiffening his spine, but Rex trusted her instantly. Since then, they'd developed an unspoken routine. Shared mornings, brief conversations, silent understanding. The bus was late. It often was. Rain pooled along the curb, and the city felt unusually quiet, like it was holding its breath. That was when Emily heard the shouting. It came from the far side of the park, angry voices, too loud for the early hour. Rex stiffened instantly, muscles coiling beneath his fur. Thomas's hand tightened on the leash. "Easy, boy," Thomas murmured, though his own voice had sharpened. 3 figures emerged from the mist, hooded jackets pulled tight, footsteps sloppy with the confidence of people who'd already decided they owned the world. Emily's stomach dropped. She recognized that look, the careless swagger, the way their eyes flicked over her scrubs, Thomas's worn clothes, and lingered on Rex. "Well, look at that," one of them said, grinning. "Fancy dog. Betty's worth a lot," another added. Thomas stood slowly, positioning himself between them and Rex. "Keep walking," he said. "You don't want trouble." The tallest of the 3 laughed. "Old man, you don't tell us what we want." Emily's pulse hammered. She took a step back, instinct screaming at her to run, but Rex's low growl anchored her in place. She'd seen violence before, plenty of it in the ER, but this felt different. This was raw and unpredictable. One of the men reached for Rex's vest. It happened fast. Too fast. "Don't touch him," Emily shouted. The man shoved Thomas aside like he weighed nothing. Thomas stumbled, hitting the bench hard, the breath knocked from his lungs. Rex lunged forward, barking furiously, but the leash held him back. Emily didn't think. She moved. She stepped between Rex and the attackers, arms out, heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. "Stop," she yelled. "He's a retired service dog. He's protected. Leave now." The men froze for half a second, surprised. Then the shortest one sneered. "Move, lady." She didn't. That was when the knife flashed. Emily felt the first stab like a white-hot punch to her side. Air rushed from her lungs in a sharp gasp. The second caught her shoulder, burning and wet. She staggered but stayed upright, hands pushing against the man's chest, trying to keep distance between him and Rex. "Run," she screamed at Thomas. "Take Rex and run." The third stab landed low, pain exploding through her abdomen. She heard Rex barking wildly, a sound filled with fury and terror. Someone shouted. Someone laughed. The world narrowed to rain, pain, and the knowledge that if she fell, they'd reach the dog. Another stab. Then another. 5 times. Her knees buckled. She collapsed onto the wet pavement, blood mixing with rainwater beneath her. The knife clattered away as distant sirens wailed, someone screaming for help. The men scattered like rats, disappearing into the fog. Emily's vision blurred. She felt hands on her, Thomas's shaking voice calling her name. Rex whined, licking her face, trying desperately to rouse her. Stay with me, Thomas begged. Please, please stay with me. Emily tried to answer, but the darkness took her. She woke up to bright lights and the rhythmic beep of a monitor. Pain wrapped around her like a heavy blanket, dull but constant. Tubes ran from her arms, and her abdomen felt like it had been split in two. A nurse noticed her stirring. Emily, you're awake. Easy now. What happened? Emily whispered. You were attacked, the nurse said gently. You're safe. Surgery went well. You're lucky. Emily swallowed. The dog, Rex. Is he? He's fine, the nurse said quickly. So is his owner. He hasn't left the waiting room. Tears slid down Emily's temples, soaking into the pillow. Relief hit her harder than the pain ever could. The next hours blurred together, doctors explaining injuries, colleagues holding her hand, police officers asking quiet questions. 5 stab wounds. One missed her liver by less than an inch. Another came dangerously close to her lung. The surgeon told her she'd survived because she was strong, and because someone had called for help immediately. Emily drifted in and out of sleep, haunted by flashes of steel and rain and Rex's terrified bark. She didn't expect visitors the next morning. She woke to an unusual stillness in the ward, a strange hush like the hospital itself was holding its breath. Then she heard footsteps. Heavy ones. Many of them. Her door opened. Thomas stood just inside, holding Rex's leash. The dog wore no vest today, just a simple collar, but his posture was proud, eyes fixed on Emily. Behind Thomas, filling the hallway, were men. So many men. They wore plain clothes, jeans, jackets, boots, but their presence was unmistakable. Tall, broad-shouldered, eyes sharp and assessing. Some had gray in their beards, others barely looked 30. All of them stood with the quiet discipline of soldiers who had seen too much and survived it. Emily's breath caught. What is this? Thomas stepped forward, voice thick. These are Rex's brothers, he said softly. And mine. One of the men removed his cap and held it against his chest. Ma'am, he said. My name is Commander Jack Reeves. United States Navy SEALs. Retired, some of us. Active, too. Emily tried to sit up, wincing. I don't understand. Reeves met her gaze, eyes steady. 24 hours ago, a message went out. A veteran's K9 was attacked. A nurse stood between him and a knife. She took 5 wounds so a dog could live. He gestured behind him. Word travels fast among us. Another man stepped forward, voice quiet but powerful. That dog served with our teams overseas. Detected explosives. Saved lives. Your life-saving instincts didn't stop when you clocked out. Emily's hands trembled. I couldn't let them hurt him. Reeves nodded. That's why we're here. 200 Navy SEALs filled the corridor, the stairwells, the lobby below. Hospital staff peeked from behind desks, stunned. Phones came out, but no one dared speak too loudly. Reeves continued, we don't forget loyalty. We don't forget courage. And we don't forget people who protect our own. Thomas approached the bed, eyes wet. Rex hasn't slept, he said. Wouldn't leave. Doctors said no dogs, but some rules are meant to bend. Rex placed his head gently on Emily's mattress. She reached out with trembling fingers, touching his fur. He sighed, tail thumping softly. I didn't do anything special, Emily whispered. 200 voices answered her silence, not with words, but with presence. With respect. Reeves stepped closer. You did something rare, he said. You stood your ground when you could have run. You defended someone who couldn't defend himself. That makes you family. Emily's chest tightened. Tears streamed freely now. One by one, the men nodded to her. Some saluted. Others simply placed a hand over their heart. Outside, the rain finally stopped. And for the first time since the knife flashed in the gray morning light, Emily felt truly safe.